Hello, friends. Welcome back. So, I have done a couple things since my last broadcast. Um, I had to go ahead and rough in my cheat lines, my grid lines, uh, to get the heads in the right position on the canvas. I didn't want to do a bunch of portrait work and then find out the head is half an inch too high, too low, too left, too whatever. I've done plenty of that in the past, and but I don't have time to play around with it this time. So, as if you got one of those episodes, I used red and blue pencils to help, and I numbered the red lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, D, E, and then numbered them correspondingly here. I also have diagonal lines in here, which I have not done. I will use those later only if I have to. So at this point, I am ready to start just sketching in the faces in acrylics. Now, once again, this is going to be, of course, an oil painting when it's done, and everything I'm doing now is underpainting. So I want to be careful to try to use as bold a strokes as I can, but I want them to be accurate strokes as well. That looks so funny. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to work around that, looking at that. It's so distracting. So let me just scribble that so it's less precise, less stark. Okay? And diminish. Let me go ahead and get a small or dark brush warmed up here. I like the way Richard Schmid, in his book, Everything I Know About Painting Plus, or something, I forget. Hang on, I should show you this book. I've mentioned Richard Schmid several times, and I've got his book right here. Yeah, Alla Prima 2. He came up with Alla Prima 1 many years ago. Alla Prima, which means all at once. Alla Prima is a style of painting up wet and wet. Everything I Know About Painting and More by Richard Schmid. So that's the book I'm talking about. It's a really good book. As you can see, I'm wading my way through it slowly. Not finished at all, but one of the ways he describes the painting process, sorry, just bumped you. One of the ways he describes the painting process is he's very methodical, rather even slow about it. I don't mean he's a slow painter, but his method is methodical to the point of slow. He says, this is my interpretation of him, find a mark that you believe is accurate. Find something in the subject matter, and this especially applies to everything, but it especially applies to portraiture, where accuracy of marks is everything. He says, find a mark that you believe you can replicate accurately. And again, this is my interpolation of him. Find a mark that you feel you can replicate accurately, and then do so. Make a mark that you think accurately, like I'm not doing right now, that you think accurately reflects the mark you can identify. Make it, and then begin growing out from there based on the one mark you made. Go out from there, making ever more confident marks. Now, having said all that, I'm really not doing that very well at the moment. on this poor girl. At the moment, I'm just trying to rough in approximations, a very rough approximation of where I think her lines go. Then I will come back step by step and make refinements and corrections. So that's just one way to do it. Another way to do this whole portrait thing, and I think it's the way most students or young people begin intuitively, they just zero in, say, on her left eye. Can you see this down? No, you can't. I'm sorry. I'm pointing to the photograph that's taped to my canvas right here. To zero in, say, on her primary eye and draw that pretty accurately. And then go out from there, like in concentric circles. Boop, 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 boop. And sometimes that actually works. That's not what the art teachers tell you. They tell you, never do that. And I used to say, never do that. But now I've changed my mind a little bit because I've discovered that sometimes you actually can render an accurate portrait doing that, what I call the zero in. And then to be funny, I call it the Zorro in technique. Zero in one piece at a time. The problem is when you do that, your sense of scale tends to slide, and you start out at one scale and you end up at another. The painting or the face grows as you go from one piece, one part to the next. Oh, and by the way, I also have over here to my right, I have big blow-ups of these faces, and that can help as well. So I have two, here I'll show you, two photographic sizes. That one, and that one, and one of them, then the painting, of course. So there are a lot of ways to skin this cat, if you will, if you're into skinning cats. Sorry, Heather Cat Lady. Just an expression, just an expression. And then there's this method that I'm using right now, which is sort of a, don't be timid, go ahead and slap something down, keep it loose and messy, and allow the image to emerge slowly out of the mist as you make the corrections. Now, the backfire to this technique that I'm using right now is sometimes if you get going on a wrong path, it's sort of the opposite of Richard Schmid's technique, where he says find one mark that's accurate, make that one mark, and then don't deviate. Then keep your head down and plow forward slowly from that one mark, working out from there, and so on. What I'm doing here is obviously different from that. I'm saying no, take some bold guesses, and work fast instead of accurate, and you're going to come back again and again and again and make ever more refined accuracies. Now, I told you in an earlier broadcast today that, of course, you can always cheat. You can always project, trace, grid, or something. The problem with that is your skills deteriorate the more you cheat. And I don't know about you, but the thought of my skills deteriorating is not a happy thought. So what I recommend is that you paint first, cheat second. In other words, give it the old college try, do the best you can, doing like I'm doing here, just eyeballing things. Just see how close you can get, and then come back later and use a cheater method to see how close you got. And that's probably what I'm going to do here. Unless by any chance, and it does happen, again, I am not the world's greatest portrait painter. But I have taken from some of the world's greatest portrait painters and have discovered that they weren't all that good at teaching. Forgive me for having the nerve to make such a statement, but they really weren't. They were great at painting, but they couldn't really verbalize to the students, to my satisfaction. They could not explain what it was they were doing. And I find that often is the case. I mean, teaching and doing are two very different things, of course. So the way I'm going to cheat later is I already have a rough grid, the kind of grid that many of you learned in junior high or high school art. What most of you didn't learn was a sophisticated grid technique where you add to the squares, you add diagonals of all sorts to absolutely pinpoint the features on the face. And so after I've done this if I'm not perfectly satisfied that I've captured a likeness of this girl and the guy, then I will employ a cheat method. So I'm right now I'm forcing my brain to work hard. And by the way, just for those of you who do this, you know, don't you? This is some of the most rigorous intellectual work you can do, is copying carefully and accurately a human face. Copying anything, but especially a human face. And as you can see, even the brushes I'm using are just too big for the kind of detail I'm trying to get out of them. I'm forcing myself. That one's a pretty small brush. I'm trying to force myself to stick to big stuff as long as I can. And I'm just about ready to leave this girl and go on to the groom and then come back to the girl, come back to the bride in a little while. Because after working on him, I will have fresher eyes for her. Sorry about that interruption. I failed to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. And I just got a phone call that I did not answer from a dear old friend. So I need to call him back. So I'm going to wrap up this episode here, even though I'd like to keep working a little bit further. I'm going to wrap it up, call my friend back, and then come back to you guys. Okay? Thanks so much for watching.